Hi friends, with the launch of Apex Legends in Season 8, we've got a new weapon, the 30-30 Repeater. Now I kicked off a new series in Season 7 focusing on how to use each weapon, and I thought it would be good to continue this series throughout Apex Legends Season 8, and it makes sense to start with a new weapon, the 30-30 Repeater. So let's start by looking at some facts and figures for the 30-30 Repeater in Apex Legends Season 8, and then I'll give you some tips on how to use it effectively, and hopefully it should help you win more games in Season 8. So the basics first. The 30-30 Repeater is a heavy weapon using heavy ammo. It's a lever action rifle that has a slower fire rate than the G7 Scout, but it does more damage per shot. I kind of see it sitting between a G7 Scout and something like a longbow. I mean, technically it sits in the assault rifle category along with the G7, but that's more because there isn't a marksman rifle category yet in Apex Legends. The base ammo size is 6, which is quite small, and it's significantly smaller than the G7 Scout. So you do want to keep a lookout for an extended heavy mag, but if you find a good one, for example a gold or a purple, it can increase your capacity all the way up to 12 rounds, which is more than enough to take out a whole squad, if you can hit your shots of course. And in terms of attachments, you can equip a 2x4 times scope as the maximum. Basically the only scopes you can't equip are the sniper scopes and the 1x digital threat scope, so basically it's the same as any other assault rifle. And I'll give a tip on which my favourite scope is a bit later in this video. In terms of damage, it depends how much you charge. You see, the 30-30 Repeater has a charge mechanism, which I'm sure you're all aware of by now, and that gives you the option to charge your shots or just feather the trigger and do individual shots without charging. The damage stats read like this: 32 for a leg shot, 42 for a body shot, and 74 for a headshot. This is all base. That's a 1.7 times multiplier for the headshot by the way, which is exactly the same as the G7 in terms of multipliers. But we'll have a look at a comparison in just a second and you can see what the damage differences are between the G7 and the 30-30 Repeater. I mentioned you can charge your shots, and actually if you do charge your shots, it can really boost your damage. It increases it to 43 for a leg shot, 57 for a body shot, and 100 for a headshot. That 100 damage for a headshot is very powerful, and from what I've seen so far, it can definitely change an encounter with a squad. If you hit one powerful headshot like that, it can really give you a big advantage. And I mentioned I would show you the table, and this is what it looks like. You can clearly see, from a damage perspective, the 30-30 Repeater does a lot more damage. When compared to the G7, you see the G7 does 60 headshot damage and 34 body shot damage, compared to the 30-30 Repeater's 74 headshot damage or 42 body shot damage. And that's not even with it being charged. If you compare that to the G7, you can then start to see a bit of a difference. I also thought I'd throw the Hemlock in there for comparison, because I guess single fire feels a little bit like a G7 Scout, although the fire rate is much faster, and because of that the damage is a lot lower. As you can see with the Hemlock, it only does 35 damage per shot and 20 body damage, meaning the 30-30 Repeater does just over double the headshot damage of a Hemlock, and that's just base for the 30-30 Repeater. When it's charged, it's even more damage than the Hemlock. But of course, like I said, the Hemlock and even the G7 have a much faster fire rate, 384 rounds per minute for the Hemlock, 240 rounds per minute for the G7, and the 30-30 Repeater is significantly lower at 138.6 rounds per minute. So essentially, looking at this table, you have a decision to make. Do you go for a faster fire rate, or do you go for more damage per bullet? And that's essentially what the 30-30 Repeater is giving you, more damage per bullet. If you can hit just 1 or 2 shots, you suddenly have a really effective gun that can definitely change the game in your favour. So those are just some facts and thoughts about the 30-30 Repeater. Let me give you some tips before we finish, and hopefully these will be really useful and help you get better with the 30-30 Repeater. Tip 1, I guess is a fairly obvious one: hit fire at close range, ADS at mid range, or long range. And I say that because you'll notice when you're ADSing with the 30-30 Repeater, your movement is very slow. So if you find an enemy close to you, you really want to switch to hip firing. Now, the fire rate while hip firing is also pretty slow when you've got the G7 or the Hemlock in your head, but actually, when you compare it to a sniper, it's definitely a lot faster. So when you're hip firing, don't expect it to be super rapid fire. Try and focus on hitting 1 or 2 shots while hip firing. Tip 2. Aim ahead of your enemy. Now the 30-30 Repeater has a slightly slower bullet travel time than something like the longbow, for example. So you want to be tracking your targets and aiming just in front of where they're moving. Of course, if they're standing still, then obviously aim straight for them. But you'll find in Apex a lot of people tend to be moving around quite a lot, so you want to lead your shots with the 30-30 Repeater. Like I said, the bullet travel time is just a bit slower than you'll be used to with something like a longbow. Tip 3. I know the 100 headshot damage seems tempting, but you don't always need to charge. So try and manage when you're charging your shots. Of course, a fully charged shot does a lot of damage, and it'll be really great if you can hit them, but also if you're waiting for your weapon to charge before firing and your opponent moves into cover, you're missing the opportunity there to deal some damage, and that could definitely be the difference between downing someone and not. So try and judge the situation, but I will say 2 non-charged shots do more damage than hitting 1 charged shot, so you're better off in some cases feathering the trigger to deal 2 shots instead of just waiting for 1 big charge shot. Tip 4. You really need a gold mag or carry a weapon you can fast switch to. The 30-30 repeater has one of the slowest reload times in the game. Its reload animation is literally 1 bullet at a time, similar to the Mastiff, but according to the devs it's a bit slower and carries more animation than the Mastiff has. Of course, we have the introduction of the gold mag as I just mentioned, so actually, if you've got 2 heavy weapons and you're deciding which one do you put a gold mag on, I can tell you the 30-30 repeater is probably a good choice, because it would definitely save you a lot of reload time. Likewise, I said the other option was to carry a faster weapon you can switch to, something like an R99, or a Volt perhaps, something where you can quickly switch to and you don't need to worry about reloading the 30-30 repeater until you're safely behind cover. Tip: go for the 2x4x scope or the 3x scope. The 30-30 repeater works best at mid-range with these scopes. Of course, you can equip the 1x or the 2x, and actually a lot of people find the standard 2x quite effective, but personally I find the 2x4x the most effective because it allows you that extra bit of zoom and allows you to hit your targets with a bit more precision. Also, there is a bit of bullet drop and recoil with the 30-30, so do try and aim for the top of the head. You'll find the further they are away, the more bullet drop you have, and it can be quite hard to hit those headshots. So actually, if you're aiming just above the head, the bullet drop should lead the bullet into the person's head. Obviously, that depends on the distance, so you will need to judge the distance as to how high you aim. And as I mentioned recoil, to be honest the recoil is not too bad, it's kind of just a straight upwards direction, which you'll need to control as you're firing. If you're charging your shots, it doesn't feel like there's much recoil, but definitely if you're feathering the shots, you do need to control the recoil. And that's it, just some tips on how to use the new weapon in Apex Legends Season 8. From a personal point of view, I think this is a really great weapon. It's definitely game changing if you can hit your shots, particularly those charged headshots dealing 100 damage. It gives you the power of a sniper, but the fire rate of something closer to the G7. It's kind of that perfect middle ground that I think a lot of people were looking for. I'll be honest though, it does take some practice, so feel free to jump in the firing range and test it out, shoot the dummies a little bit, get a feel for that fire rate, because it's quite different from anything we've had so far. But once you get the hang of it, it can really change your game. That's all for today. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and come join our community of friends. I'd really appreciate the support. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later. By the way, did you know I stream every Saturday at around 7 PM UK time? Most of these I'll actually be playing with anyone that wants to play with me, so you can actually join in with me and we can play some Apex Legends together. So come join me for my next stream on Saturday. I look forward to seeing you there.